Okay, let's unpack this. In a world just overflowing with information, we're here to give you that shortcut to being truly well-informed, custom-tailored for you. And what a week it's been in the global landscape. Sometimes you see a number that just, well, it makes your jaw drop. Did you know that AI website referrals were up a staggering 357% year over year in June 2025?
357%.
Yeah. We're talking over 1.13 billion global referrals generated by AI platforms in just 1 month.
Wow.
That's not just growth, it's an explosion. It's fundamentally reshaping how we interact with the internet almost without us, even realizing it day to day.
What's fascinating here is how seemingly disparate events from those astonishing AI breakthroughs you mentioned to the complex geopolitical movements and, well, border conflicts across the globe, they're actually weaving this complex, interconnected global tapestry. It's incredibly easy to get lost in the daily headlines, right? To feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. But when you step back, as we aim to do here in our deep dives, you start to see these intricate connections, these underlying currents that shape our world in really profound ways.
Absolutely, and that's precisely our mission today. We're going on a deep dive into some of the most impactful stories of the moment, kind of sifting through the noise to bring you the signal. So we're going to explore the truly explosive growth and, well, the multifaceted impacts of artificial intelligence. Then we'll navigate the intricate and often volatile geopolitical landscape marked by ongoing conflicts and shifting diplomatic efforts. And finally, we'll uncover some surprising trends shaping the global economy and, societal well-being. So let's truly get into it, Ivid. The accelerating AI revolution and its broader ripple effects. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and frankly a little mind-bending sometimes. Let's kick things off with a sector that's just been consistently making headlines, reshaping our digital lives, and fundamentally altering how we interact with technology: artificial intelligence.
Indeed. The pace of innovation in AI is, well, it's not just breathtaking, it's accelerating in ways that are almost hard to fully comprehend sometimes. It's no longer just about, incremental advancements. We're seeing fundamental shifts in technological infrastructure and, crucially, in human-computer interaction.
And leading that charge, we've seen some incredibly strategic moves from the big tech giants. Meta, for instance. They've made a significant decision, naming Shengjia Zhao as the chief scientist of its new artificial intelligence, or AI, superintelligence unit.
Right.
This isn't just shuffling deck chairs. This is a clear signal, isn't it? A signal of Meta's intensified focus on pushing the absolute boundaries of AI technologies and integrating them deeply across all their platforms, maybe even, their ambitious metaverse projects down the line.
That appointment is highly significant. For several reasons, actually. The very creation of a dedicated superintelligence unit by a tech giant like Meta, well, it signals a profound long-term commitment. They're committing to developing AI capabilities far beyond what we currently understand or even see in consumer applications today. It suggests they're not just thinking about refining existing algorithms, like for your newsfeed or something. They're aiming for transformative breakthroughs, things that could redefine how we interact with all digital spaces, and perhaps even, accelerate the path towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
AGI, right. That's the big one.
Exactly. And Zhao's background, it's deeply rooted in cutting-edge deep learning research. That positions him to drive innovation that could lead to new forms of AI that are more adaptable, more capable of learning across diverse tasks, and ultimately just more integrated into our daily digital lives. This move positions Meta not just as a social media company anymore, but as a key player in the race for future AI dominance. It's a major strategic play.
And you see the real-world impact of this AI boom in those numbers we talked about. We just mentioned it, but it really bears repeating. AI platforms, in June 2025 alone, generated over 1.13 billion referrals to the top 1,000 websites globally.
Over a billion.
Yeah, that astonishing 357% increase year over year. When you hear numbers like that, it's hard not to wonder. Are we heading towards a future where AI isn't just a tool we use, but it's our primary navigator online? Will we even need to type a uniform resource locator, a URL anymore? Or will AI just sort of anticipate our every click, maybe even before we realize what we want to find? I mean, who has time for URLs anymore, right? Light, natural chuckle.
Soft chuckle. It's a very valid question. And it's becoming increasingly pertinent, actually. This rapid, almost exponential growth in AI-driven referrals fundamentally alters user behavior. and content consumption online, full stop.
Right.
It signifies that AI is swiftly becoming a dominant pathway for internet navigation.
Mhm.
It's moving beyond simple search queries, like you type into Google, to a more predictive and curated experience.
Yeah.
So for businesses, for content creators, advertisers, this shift is critical. You have to understand these AI-driven traffic patterns. It forces a paradigm shift from traditional search engine optimization, SEO, to maybe, I don't know, a new era of AI model optimization. How do you make your content visible to the AI?
That's a whole new ball game.
It is.
Yeah.
And it also raises profound questions about the diversity of information users might encounter. If AI systems begin to heavily filter or prioritize content based on their own algorithms, maybe their own biases, well, you could end up with new forms of digital echo chambers, even stronger ones than we have now.
That's a sobering thought. And it's not just about website referrals either, is it? AI is actively kind of seeping into our physical world in very tangible ways. Take autonomous vehicles, for instance. Tesla. They're now set to launch an even more limited version of its early robotaxi service, this time in San Francisco, California. That's following an initial rollout they did in Austin, Texas. So moving into a much denser city.
And this raises an important question. While the dream of widespread robotaxis is, incredibly exciting and holds immense promise, the practicalities of their deployment and, crucially, their safety, especially in dense urban environments like San Francisco, are just immense.
Yeah.
There are significant complexities and regulatory hurdles that absolutely must be overcome. For example, navigating San Francisco's unique topography. Think about those steep hills, the narrow streets,
Oh, yeah.
or its famously dense and unpredictable traffic patterns. Not to mention the nuanced interactions with pedestrians, cyclists, existing public transport.
Cable cars.
Cable cars, exactly. It presents a totally different challenge than the more, let's say, open roads of Austin.
Completely different.
And the regulatory landscape is also complex. You've got layers of permits, liability discussions, public trust issues. It really highlights this vast gap between the grand technological vision and the granular, real-world execution. It just demands rigorous, hands-on development and extensive testing in incredibly diverse scenarios before you can really scale it up safely.
And on that note about real-world testing, a Tesla veteran recently emphasized that the key to staying innovative, to making consistent progress in a field like this, it lies in reviewing real products rather than relying solely on mock-ups or, theoretical models.
Yes.
That philosophy really resonates, doesn't it? It's about tangible, iterative development, moving from the drawing board to the actual road, warts and all.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
The reviewing real products philosophy is, I think, a profoundly pragmatic and effective approach to innovation, not just in automotive tech, but really across many sectors. It contrasts sharply with purely theoretical or conceptual development. That kind of development can often lead to products that look great on paper or maybe in simulations, but then they fail when confronted with the unpredictable complexities of the real world.
Right.
So for other technology sectors, this means a rigorous focus on rapid prototyping, real-world user testing, and establishing constant immediate feedback loops from actual users, actual operational environments, rather than getting bogged down in endless conceptual stages or PowerPoint decks.
Yeah. Chuckles slightly. Yeah, death by PowerPoint.
Exactly. It emphasizes that true innovation comes from practical application, continuous refinement, and a real willingness to confront and learn from real-world challenges. It accelerates the development cycle and ensures products are truly fit for purpose.
Makes perfect sense. But, with all this incredible AI development speeding ahead, the conversation around regulation and cybersecurity has become increasingly urgent. It feels like we're playing catch-up. China, for instance, has publicly called for a global consensus on AI regulation. They're stressing the need for international cooperation on both the development and the security aspects of this powerful technology.
China's call for global AI regulation carries, profound geopolitical implications. It's a very complex diplomatic tightrope walk. While the idea of a universal consensus sounds appealing, for global stability, achieving true international agreement among nations with vastly diverse ethical frameworks, national interests, levels of technological development, it's an incredibly challenging endeavor.
Hugely challenging.
Think about it. China's approach to data governance and surveillance differs significantly from that of Western democracies, right?
Fundamentally.
So that leads to inherent tensions around privacy, data sovereignty, the use of AI for societal control versus individual empowerment. This push for regulation is effectively a strategic race. It's a race to shape the future of AI governance, with each major power attempting to embed its own values, its own strategic advantages, and its long-term economic interests into whatever global framework emerges.
So it's not just about safety, it's about setting the rules of the game for the future.
Precisely. It highlights the growing importance of international forums in establishing norms for these powerful emerging technologies. Who gets to write the rulebook matters immensely.
And while the global powers are discussing regulation, the immediate impact of this digital surge, especially with AI integrated into everything, is the increasing vulnerability of our personal data. We keep seeing it. We've seen alarming incidents just this week. Allianz Life, a major insurance provider, reported that a majority of its customers' personal data was stolen in a cyber attack. A majority.
That's huge.
And in an even more, well, deeply personal example, hackers illegally accessed images from T. That's a women's dating safety app designed specifically to vet men.
Oh, wow.
So this isn't just about financial data, that's bad enough. This is about a violation of trust in deeply personal, sensitive spaces.
These breaches just highlight the mounting and increasingly insidious security risks as more and more aspects of our lives migrate onto digital platforms. And many of these platforms are becoming increasingly AI-dependent, which adds another layer of complexity. The Allianz Life attack is a stark reminder of the widespread financial and identity theft risks that large-scale corporate breaches pose. It affects countless individuals. But the dating app hack, where private images were illegally accessed, that's particularly egregious and deeply personal.
It really is.
It's not just a privacy breach. It's a profound violation of emotional trust and personal safety, especially given that these apps are designed, supposedly, to provide a secure space for sensitive interactions.
Exactly. That's the whole point of the app.
Right. This incident underscores the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures, not just at the corporate level, but also for individual users to be incredibly vigilant about the data they share online. It also highlights, I think, a growing blind spot in our digital security efforts, protecting the psychological and social vulnerability that digital attacks can exploit, not just the financial data, the human impact.
The human impact, yeah. So what does this all mean for us, the users, as we navigate this rapidly evolving digital landscape? We're embracing this technology at an incredible pace, right? Integrating it into almost every aspect of our lives, work, socializing, everything. But are we truly prepared for the mounting, evolving security risks? And are we ready for the complex conversations around global governance? The fundamental questions of how to manage this new era. It feels like we're simultaneously speeding forward into uncharted territory and at the same time grappling with these huge foundational questions of how to manage this profound shift responsibly. It's a bit dizzying.
It is dizzying. And there are no easy answers, unfortunately. It requires constant vigilance, adaptation, and a global dialogue that, frankly, seems difficult to achieve right now. 2. Global hot zones, conflicts, diplomatic maneuvers, and the human toll. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, moving beyond the purely digital sphere for a moment, the world stage remains fraught with these complex, interconnected conflicts. Each conflict carries significant humanitarian and strategic implications, and they're often intertwined with these intricate diplomatic chess matches, moves and countermoves. It's a constant balancing act, isn't it? Between the rhetoric you hear from leaders and the often harsh realities on the ground. And frankly, some of the most challenging moral and political dilemmas of our time are playing out right now.
And nowhere is that balancing act more evident, perhaps, than in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. We've seen U.S. President Donald Trump confidently state that a face-to-face meeting between the Russian leader Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky is going to happen.
Right. He's been quite vocal about that.
And this sentiment was even echoed by Turkey's foreign minister, who confirmed both Moscow and Kyiv have agreed to such a summit, at least in principle. On the surface, it sounds like maybe a glimmer of hope.
Well, what's fascinating here, and perhaps predictable, is the persistent gap between that kind of diplomatic aspiration and the often grim ground reality. The Kremlin, for its part, maintains a very specific stance. They say such a summit should only occur to finalize a peace agreement, not for preliminary discussions or just a photo op.
Right, only at the end.
Exactly. And they've also consistently raised questions about Zelensky's legitimacy as president, which is a position that significantly complicates any direct, productive negotiation. You can't really negotiate seriously with someone whose authority you publicly question. So this highlights the vastly differing perspectives and conditions from all parties involved. It makes a genuine breakthrough immensely challenging. While Putin has expressed willingness to meet Zelensky at what he calls the final stage of talks, reaching that stage Given the current military situation and the political rhetoric, that remains the ultimate and most formidable hurdle.
And Trump also suggested the possibility of imposing new sanctions on Russia before a 50-day deadline. Moscow largely dismissed that threat, saying it just signals an intent to continue the war. I mean, a 50-day deadline for sanctions and high-stakes international diplomacy. Slight chuckle. What's the real-world impact of a seemingly arbitrary timeline like that? Or, frankly, of sanctions in general these days? It feels like we've seen so many packages.
Light chuckle. You really hit on a crucial point there. Such deadlines, these arbitrary timelines, often serve more as rhetorical pressure points. They're for domestic or international audiences, rather than being truly hard policy tools that dictate geopolitical outcomes.
Yeah.
And when we look at the European Union's efforts, for example, they've introduced their 18th package of sanctions against Russia.
18.
Yet despite targeting vital sectors like energy and finance, the cumulative impact, particularly by mid-2025, is considered by many analysts to be, well, more symbolic than strategic.
Symbolic, not strategic. Okay.
Russia has demonstrated a significant and frankly surprising capacity to adapt its economy and operations. They've drastically decreased reliance on EU entities since early 2022 and redirected trade flows to other partners, think China, India, others. This suggests that while sanctions certainly reinforce a tough diplomatic stance, and they do impose some costs, they haven't crippled the Russian economy in the way some initially envisioned. It forces nations to constantly reevaluate the effectiveness of sanctions as a tool.
So diminishing returns, perhaps. Beyond sanctions, there's also this larger strategic stability concern looming, isn't there? The potential expiration of the New START treaty in 2026.
Yes, New START, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty.
Right. Trump has called for renewed nuclear talks with Russia on this. This feels like a ticking clock on something incredibly important, potentially dangerous.
The New START treaty is indeed crucial. It represents the last major arms control agreement, limiting the number of deployed strategic nuclear warheads and their delivery systems for both the United States and Russia. The last one standing.
Wow.
Its expiration without a replacement, or at least a serious plan for one, raises severe strategic stability concerns. It could potentially lead to an unconstrained nuclear arms race and definitely increases the risk of miscalculation in a crisis.
Which nobody wants.
Nobody. Both the United States and Russia urgently need to engage in serious dialogue on arms control, especially given the history of the U.S. withdrawing from previous treaties like the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces, or INF, treaty. Reaching new agreements requires significant trust-building measures, navigating this complex, often fraught history of their relations, which is particularly challenging in the current geopolitical climate where distrust runs incredibly high.
Extremely high. And if we look within Ukraine itself, the societal impacts of this war are just profound. They ripple far beyond the immediate front lines in ways you might not expect. We're seeing, for example, a growing use of the Russian language in Lithuania. This is influenced by the large number of Ukrainian refugees, many of whom are Russian speakers, and this has actually sparked government warnings there against incitement targeting Russian speakers.
It's a fascinating and complex dynamic. This phenomenon strikingly illustrates the deep cultural and social implications of large-scale refugee movements on host countries. While a significant portion of Lithuanian citizens are already fluent in Russian due to historical ties from the Soviet era,
Right.
the influx of Ukrainian refugees, many of whom also speak Russian, creates new complex social dynamics. The Lithuanian government's warning against incitement is a critical step. It's aimed at preventing ethnic tensions, particularly given Lithuania's own complex historical relationship with Russia, and its ongoing efforts to limit the role of Russian in public life to assert its national identity.
So it's a real balancing act.
It's an incredibly delicate balance between humanitarian welcome and safeguarding national cohesion and historical sensitivities. Very tricky.
And the human cost of this war, it's just stark. In ways that seem to defy official promises. The BBC reported recently that school leavers, basically teenagers, young people, are losing their lives fighting for Russia in Ukraine. This is despite official promises from Moscow not to send 18-year-olds to the front lines.
This is an undeniably tragic and sobering reality of war. Despite those official assurances from the Russian government, young lives, some barely adults, are being lost on the front lines. It highlights the immense human cost of the conflict and exposes the stark discrepancies that often exist between state promises and the brutal, indiscriminate realities of warfare. It's a powerful and deeply saddening reminder of the sacrifices demanded by conflict, particularly from the most vulnerable segments of society, the youngest generation.
Just tragic. And then, internally in Ukraine, there's political turmoil, too. President Zelensky's attempts to curb the independence of key anti-corruption agencies, specifically the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, NABU, and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, SAPO, these moves ignited widespread protests.
Yeah.
And they seem to have exposed his political vulnerability. Even Poland, a really staunch ally, voiced caution.
Yes, this situation reveals a very delicate and often precarious balance between wartime governance, which demands unity and control, and the essential pursuit of democratic reforms, like fighting corruption. AMU and SOPO were established after the 2014 Maidan Revolution, specifically to align Ukraine with Western governance standards and demonstrate a commitment to combating systemic corruption, something international partners have demanded.
Right, a key condition for aid and integration.
Exactly. Zelensky's move to curb their independence, which would have allowed for more direct oversight by the prosecutor general, triggered mass protests domestically and strong criticism from Western partners, including Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski, who was quite blunt. Now, while Zelensky has since proposed a bill to restore their powers, the entire episode exposes deep internal political turmoil, and it raises critical questions about how the perception of corruption or backsliding on reforms impacts Ukraine's vital international support and its long-term path toward integration with Western institutions like the European Union. It's a constant battle for transparency and accountability, even amidst an existential threat.
A really tough tightrope to walk. And then there's this other dimension, this sort of unseen hand, the truly unprecedented power of private entities in geopolitics today. Elon Musk reportedly ordered a shutdown of his Starlink satellite coverage during a critical phase of Ukraine's counteroffensive back in September 2022.
Yes, that story resurfaced with more detail.
Apparently driven by his fears of Russian nuclear retaliation if Ukraine used Starlink for a major attack, say, on Crimea. This isn't a government decision. This is a private citizen making a call that directly impacts a war.
It's an unprecedented and ethically complex situation. It really highlights the immense, almost unchecked power that private companies and even individuals like Musk can wield in modern conflicts. Musk's decision, rooted in his stated fear of Russian nuclear escalation, whether that fear was well-founded or not in that specific context, is debated directly impacted Ukrainian military operations. It led to a communications blackout in certain regions that were critical for their counteroffensive.
Right.
The ethical dilemma here is profound. When a corporate decision directly influences military outcomes, potentially alters the course of a war, and even impacts global stability, it raises critical questions. Questions about accountability, oversight, and the precise boundaries between private enterprise, technological innovation, and state power in wartime. His concerns about triggering a nuclear response underscore the heavy responsibility that now, perhaps inadvertently, rests on the shoulders of private tech giants who control critical infrastructure.
A responsibility they maybe never asked for but now possess? Okay, shifting regions now to another hot zone. We've seen a serious escalation of the Thailand-Cambodia border conflict. Clashes have intensified, extending into a third day. The death toll, sadly, is rising. At least 32 killed reported so far, over 130 injured.
Terrible numbers.
And crucially, tens of thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes. This is a severe humanitarian crisis unfolding rapidly right there on the border.
What's truly fascinating here and deeply concerning is how quickly these seemingly localized disputes can escalate, and perhaps more importantly, how they can draw in the interests of major global players.
Like the U.S. and China.
Exactly, like the U.S. and China, effectively turning a regional issue into a broader proxy dynamic. The source material notes that this conflict pits Thailand, described as a well-equipped U.S. ally, against Cambodia, characterized as a weaker adversary with strong China links.
That framing says a lot.
It immediately signals the underlying geopolitical fault lines at play. The conflict isn't just about, say, disputed temple grounds or local land disputes anymore. It's also about spheres of influence between global powers playing out locally. The rapid escalation and the severe humanitarian impact, with tens of thousands displaced, just underscore the urgent need for de-escalation and international mediation.
And surprisingly, perhaps U.S. President Donald Trump reportedly waded in on this. He apparently spoke with the leaders of both Thailand and Cambodia to negotiate a ceasefire while he was visiting Scotland.
Yes, that detail caught my eye too.
It seems unusual, doesn't it? A sitting, or in this case, former U.S. president, intervening directly in a regional dispute while on what was described as a private golf trip.
Trump's direct intervention in this regional dispute, especially while on a private trip, is indeed significant and, as you say, somewhat unconventional diplomacy. It signals a willingness, maybe even a preference, to engage directly in diplomatic matters, potentially bypassing traditional State Department channels or protocols. From one perspective, you could interpret it as a demonstration of perceived U.S. influence and a capacity for immediate high-level engagement in Southeast Asia, even if applied, well, indirectly. It also aligns with a more personalized, leader-to-leader approach to diplomacy that has characterized his foreign policy style in the past.
Right.
His immediate call for a ceasefire reflects the urgency of the situation on the ground, and it indicates perhaps a more hands-on, if unorthodox, approach to global conflict resolution. How this might impact long-term diplomatic protocols or alliances, well, that remains to be seen. 3. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the shifting landscape of recognition.
Okay, turning our attention now to another critical region. The situation in Gaza remains just a profound humanitarian concern, and it's deeply intertwined with complex diplomatic maneuvers and intense internal debates, both within the region and increasingly internationally.
The reports coming out of Gaza paint an increasingly grim and desperate picture. The United Nations World Food Program, the WFP, warns that almost a third of people in Gaza have not eaten for days. Yes. Al Jazeera reports a tragic toll of 127 starvation deaths, including 85 children, amidst a siege that has led to what many organizations and observers are now calling a man-made famine.
A man-made famine, strong words. And this occurs despite Israel's claims of distributing aid, or at least facilitating its distribution. But reports also indicate Israel has, at times, blocked aid convoys. And there's been significant criticism leveled at the newly established GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, for its perceived inefficiency and limited impact compared to traditional, more established aid agencies like UNRWA or the WFP.
Right.
So there's this stark contradiction, isn't there, between the claims of aid delivery and the reality of starvation on the ground.
It certainly raises an important question. If allegations of widespread aid theft by Hamas are unfounded, and importantly, both U.S. and Israeli military officials have stated publicly there is no proof Hamas routinely stole UN aid.
Right, that report was significant.
It was. So if that's the case, then what truly is impeding the consistent and sufficient flow of life-saving supplies into Gaza? This report directly challenges a prevalent narrative that blamed Hamas diversion for the shortages. It shifts the focus to other impediments.
Such as?
Well, possibly outright blockades at crossings, severe logistical challenges within the war zone, damaged roads, lack of fuel, active fighting, or perhaps intentional restrictions on the types or amounts of aid allowed in. And the strong criticism of the GHF for its inefficiency also suggests that maybe bureaucratic hurdles or operational issues with this new mechanism might be exacerbating the crisis, rather than it simply being about aid diversion. It compels us to look at a broader, more complex set of factors contributing to this dire humanitarian situation.
It's not a simple picture.
No, clearly not. And it's not just about getting aid in, it's also about how it gets in and whether that method is actually effective. Jeremy Bowen of the BBC, a very experienced conflict reporter, voiced strong skepticism about aid airdrops. He called them an act of desperation.
He said they are both inefficient and risky, and, critically, won't solve the hunger crisis. Despite this, the UK, for its part, is now working with Jordan on a plan to airdrop aid and also evacuate some children needing urgent medical care.
Bowen's assessment really underscores the desperation of the situation, and it highlights the inherent practical limitations of airdrops as a primary humanitarian response. While they offer perhaps a temporary and maybe symbolic show of support or action, they are fundamentally not a sustainable or efficient solution compared to consistent, large-scale ground convoys reaching distribution points safely.
Right. Trucks on the ground.
Exactly. The risks involved in airdrops are substantial. Aid can land in unintended locations, the sea, inaccessible areas, dangerous zones. There have been reports of injuries, even deaths, occurring during chaotic aid distribution as desperate people scramble for supplies falling from the sky. These factors just highlight the severe logistical and safety challenges of delivering aid in an active conflict zone. Ultimately, the focus needs to shift decisively towards achieving political solutions. Solutions that ensure consistent, sufficient, and safe ground access for humanitarian aid. Airdrops are a measure of last resort, not a long-term strategy to prevent famine.
Amidst all this humanitarian catastrophe, there's also a growing international push for Palestinian statehood recognition. France's recent decision to recognize Palestine is apparently intensifying pressure on UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to do the same.
Yes, that's a significant development.
And a large cross-party group, 221 members of parliament, nearly a third of the UK House of Commons, has urged Starmer to officially recognize a Palestinian state. They're pointing to France's lead and also citing the UK's own historic connections to the region and its permanent membership on the United Nations Security Council.
This increasing diplomatic momentum for Palestinian statehood recognition could indeed have significant implications. Implications for the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and potentially broader regional stability. The UK, with its historical connections through the British Mandate period and its influential position on the UN Security Council, holds particularly important diplomatic leverage, or at least is perceived to. The pressure from such a substantial and diverse cross-party group of MPs might indeed influence UK policy. It could potentially shift its traditional stance, which has generally been that recognition should come at the end of a negotiated peace process, towards a more proactive role, perhaps seeing recognition itself as a step towards a two-state solution.
A tool rather than just an outcome.
Possibly. And Starmer's indication that the UK will play a role in new Gaza aid airdrops despite their limitations could be seen as an early, subtle signal of this potential shift in engagement, a way to demonstrate commitment and influence without yet taking the bigger step of recognition.
Interesting. Meanwhile, on the U.S. side, President Donald Trump has emphatically stated that Israel has to get rid of Hamas. He's accusing the militants of bad faith negotiations and using hostages as leverage.
Yes, a very strong statement.
This hardening tone from the Trump administration comes right amidst the ongoing reports of starvation in Gaza. It's a very strong, seemingly uncompromising stance.
Trump's strong rhetoric, including that unwavering stance that Israel have to get rid of Hamas, firmly aligns with Israel's stated primary military objective of dismantling the militant group's capabilities. However, this hardline position can also be seen to diverge from, or at least potentially complicate, the ongoing ceasefire negotiations that often seek a more immediate humanitarian pause, perhaps linked to hostage releases.
Right, the immediate versus long-term goals.
Exactly. The timing of this hardening tone, amidst severe and escalating starvation reports from Gaza, raises important questions about the prioritization of military objectives versus the dire humanitarian concerns. Different political perspectives, both in the U.S. and internationally, will weigh these priorities very differently. Some emphasize the need for decisive military action against Hamas, while others prioritize immediate civilian relief and de-escalation.
And within Israel itself, we're seeing these remarkable signs of internal dissent. A group of teenagers, they're being labeled refusers.
The Shmonista movement has a history, but this seems particularly potent now.
Right. They are notably risking jail time, fracturing friendships, straining family ties. By refusing conscription into the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, specifically for service in Gaza, they are demonstratively burning their draft letters in public protest.
The phenomenon of these refusers is a powerful and very public form of internal dissent within Israeli society. It reflects profound moral and personal dilemmas regarding the conflict, particularly for young people facing mandatory military service. These teenagers are taking an incredibly courageous stand, risking significant personal consequences: imprisonment, social ostracization, family friction to protest the war and its conduct in Gaza.
Yeah, that takes guts.
It really does. Their actions highlight the complex and often painful ethical questions that conflicts impose on individuals, especially in societies with mandatory military service, where personal conscience can directly clash with perceived national duty or government policy. It's a stark reminder that even within nations involved in conflict, there is often a diversity of viewpoints and deeply felt disagreements, even among the generation being asked to fight.
So, pulling back, what does this all mean for the people caught in the middle? The civilians in Gaza facing starvation, the hostages still held, the families on both sides. The diplomatic and humanitarian challenges here are just immense, and the pressure is mounting from every direction externally from the international community, pushing for aid and statehood, and internally from citizens, like these refusers, expressing deep dissent. It's a truly desperate and multi-layered situation for so many people.
It absolutely is. And finding a path forward that addresses both the immediate humanitarian crisis and the long-term political issues remains incredibly elusive. 4. Economic resilience, social shifts, and unexpected insights.
Okay, let's pivot now. Moving away from those critical geopolitical hot zones, let's look at the broader economic landscape, because here we're seeing some fascinating, almost contradictory trends playing out, alongside some significant societal shifts that touch our daily lives in perhaps unexpected ways.
Indeed. The global economy at this moment presents a truly paradoxical picture, doesn't it? You have this robust market performance, record highs in some indices, coexisting with very puzzling, highly localized trends that directly affect individual households and their cost of living.
You can say that again. I mean, on one hand, the S&P 500, a key U.S. stock market index, notably posted its fifth straight record close this week, propelled by solid corporate earnings reports.
Strong performance.
Yeah. And the Nasdaq and Dow also hit new record highs. It signals strong market performance driven by underlying economic activities, maybe some investor optimism. Yet, in this puzzling contrast, home sales across many regions, certainly in the U.S. and parts of Europe, are down, but housing prices are at an all-time high.
Right.
Feels like two completely different economies are running simultaneously, one for Wall Street, one for Main Street.
This housing paradox, as you called it, is a classic economic puzzle. And it's one that directly impacts millions of people trying to buy or rent. Despite decreased sales volume, which typically would suggest cooling demand, prices continue to climb, which seems counterintuitive.
Totally.
This can be attributed to a really complex interplay of factors. There's persistent high demand relative to a very limited supply of available homes for sale. That's a big one. Then you have elevated interest rates, making mortgages much more expensive, impacting affordability for many potential buyers. And crucially, there's a reluctance by existing homeowners, many of whom locked in super low interest rates a few years ago, a reluctance to sell their properties and face today's higher rates. This lock-in effect further constrains inventory.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
So while fewer transactions are happening overall, the underlying demand for housing remains incredibly strong among those who can afford to buy, pushing up prices for the scarce available properties. It's a challenging and often frustrating market for anyone looking to buy a home right now, regardless of what the S&P 500 is doing.
Absolutely. And speaking of unexpected economic trends affecting everyday life, did you know that global demand for matcha? You know, that trendy green tea powder?
Oh yeah, matcha lattes everywhere.
Exactly. Well, demand has actually outstripped supply, causing prices to surge.
Really? Why?
Apparently, it's due to smaller tea crops resulting from recent heat waves, particularly in Japan, where a lot of high-quality matcha comes from. And interestingly, U.S. tariffs on Japanese goods are also playing a role. Let's out a relatable sigh. Honestly, sometimes I feel like my personal finances are more impacted by the rising cost of trendy beverages than by the abstract S&P 500 records. It's a sobering thought when your morning caffeine fix starts feeling like a luxury item. Chuckles or
Chuckles. It's a perfectly relatable struggle, and it serves as a really compelling microexample, doesn't it? It shows how seemingly distant macro factors, things like global climate events affecting agricultural yields in Japan, and complex international trade policies like U.S. tariffs, how they can create direct and immediate supply chain disruptions that impact, surprisingly, everyday consumer goods.
Yeah. Who knew tariffs could hit my latte?
Right. The matcha price surge is a perfect illustration of how shifts in global consumer tastes, combined with environmental changes and geopolitical decisions on trade, can converge to affect something as simple as your morning tea or coffee. It just reminds us that every single product on our shelf, no matter how mundane it seems, is part of this vast, interconnected global system.
Very true. Okay, moving from general economics to specific business strategies for a moment. Jahanvi Sardana from Index Ventures, that's a prominent venture capital firm, she's advised startup founders to shift their focus away from traditional total addressable market, or TAM, calculations.
TAM, the big number everyone loves.
Exactly. She says focus instead on more actionable metrics for driving sustainable business growth. What's the practical difference there for a startup trying to scale up? Why is TAM maybe not the best focus?
This is a really crucial strategic pivot, I think, for both startups and even established businesses. It's about moving from theoretical potential to practical execution. While TAM provides this broad, often huge, aspirational estimate of potential market size, it can often be an abstract number. It doesn't directly inform your day-to-day operations or immediate investment decisions. It's just big.
Right, like the global market for widgets is $50 trillion. Okay, now what?
Precisely. Focusing instead on actionable metrics, things you can actually measure and influence week to week, like customer acquisition cost, CAC, customer lifetime value, LTV, churn rate, conversion rates through your sales funnel. These provide founders with practical, immediate granular insights that directly inform business decisions, product development choices, and sustainable growth strategies. How much can you spend to get a customer? How long do they stick around? Are they buying more?
Makes sense. More grounded.
Much more grounded. It emphasizes a results-oriented approach to scaling. It allows companies to respond quickly to market feedback, allocate resources more efficiently based on what's actually working, and ultimately, it improves their chances of long-term success. It's about building a business on data-driven reality, not just optimistic projections in a pitch deck.
Got it. And sticking with the corporate world, but shifting to media, Paramount co-chief executive officers have confirmed the August closing date for their massive $8 billion merger with Skydance.
Right. That deal's been in the works for a while.
And interestingly, it's a deal that reportedly received approval from U.S. President Donald Trump. So this isn't just a straightforward corporate merger. It seems to have a political dimension, too.
This particular merger really highlights how major corporate deals, especially in influential sectors like media and entertainment, can be deeply intertwined with high-level governmental approvals and broader political implications. An $8 billion deal like this inevitably draws significant regulatory scrutiny, not just from antitrust bodies looking at market competition, but often from political figures concerned about media influence or ownership concentration. The reported involvement and approval by a U.S. president, particularly given Donald Trump's past comments and sometimes actions regarding media consolidation and perceived bias, well, it adds another layer of intrigue to the deal's broader context. It just underscores the fact that such significant changes to the industry landscape are often subjected to both economic and political considerations before they can be finalized. It's rarely just about the business case.
Fascinating intersection. Okay, now let's turn to some deeply pressing societal shifts and human rights issues that have been in the news. We've seen the first deportation flights begin from Florida's controversial Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center. That's its nickname, apparently.
Right, due to its remote location.
This follows plans announced for a surge in immigration arrests. And it comes as U.S. President Donald Trump publicly urged Europe to get its act together on immigration, warning that, in his view, it is killing the continent due to an influx of migrants. Strong words again.
And this really raises that important and difficult question again. How do nations balance legitimate national security concerns and the enforcement of their immigration laws with fundamental humanitarian concerns and international human rights norms? That's a constant tension.
Always.
The start of deportations from Alligator Alcatraz, a detention center nicknamed for its remote location and reportedly harsh conditions, combined with the strong rhetoric from President Trump. It underscores a highly polarizing global debate on immigration. His comments, delivered publicly, reflect a consistent political stance, one advocating for stricter border controls and, in some cases, mass deportations, often emphasizing perceived negative economic or social impacts of migration on host societies. These stories collectively highlight the growing pressure on national borders worldwide and the complex ethical dilemmas involved in managing global migration flows. Different political ideologies offer vastly different solutions and priorities, often leading to deeply divisive policies.
And in a related human rights issue, but a different context, the UK has strongly condemned Hong Kong authorities.
What for?
For offering substantial cash rewards. We're talking amounts ranging from 200,000 to 1 million Hong Kong dollars for assistance in arresting pro-democracy activists who are currently living in Britain.
Wow. Offering bounties for people in the UK.
Exactly. The UK government has explicitly labeled this transnational repression, and they're raising serious concerns about potential extradition rule reforms that might facilitate something like this.
These Hong Kong bounties represent a significant challenge to national sovereignty, and crucially, to the fundamental protection of political dissidents abroad.
It feels like a major escalation.
It certainly creates escalating diplomatic tensions between the UK and China. The UK perceives this as a blatant attempt by Hong Kong authorities, likely acting under Beijing's influence, to exert legal and political influence far beyond China's borders, targeting individuals residing legally in a sovereign nation. The concern about potential extradition rule reforms further highlights the broader implications for international law and human rights. How do democratic nations protect their citizens and residents from foreign state actions that seek to target or silence them on their own soil? It's a clear instance of global power dynamics directly impacting individual liberties and challenging established international norms.
A really worrying development. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about social well-being. This is something often less visible in the headlines than geopolitics, but it's deeply impactful on people's lives. A recent German survey has revealed what's being called a loneliness epidemic, particularly among young people.
Oh, loneliness epidemic. That sounds serious.
It does. 60% of young people surveyed reported suffering from loneliness, either often, sometimes, or rarely, which is a broad range, but still 60% feeling it at some level. And the survey links this trend, perhaps paradoxically, to high social media consumption and also to increasingly individualistic societal tendencies.
This survey reveals a profound societal implication of modern life, especially among youth. And it's almost certainly a global concern, not just limited to Germany. We see similar reports elsewhere. It forces us to question the complex and often counterintuitive relationship between pervasive digital connectivity and actual mental health or social connection.
Right. More connected, but more lonely.
Exactly. While social media platforms promise to connect us, for many, they can paradoxically contribute to feelings of isolation and loneliness.
Right.
Maybe it's the pressure of presenting a curated, often unrealistic version of oneself online, or the superficial nature of many online interactions compared to genuine face-to-face engagement.
FOMO, fear of missing out, probably plays a role too.
Absolutely. And the mention of individualistic societal tendencies also points to broader cultural shifts that might be eroding traditional community bonds, neighborhood connections, collective experiences that used to combat loneliness more naturally. Addressing this loneliness epidemic requires holistic approaches, looking beyond just screen time to actively fostering genuine social engagement, building resilient communities, and encouraging real-world connections and support systems.
A big challenge for society. And on a very important public health front, something quite different. A team of researchers has discovered that hazardous forever chemicals, specifically PFAS, which stands for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances.
PFAS. They're everywhere.
Apparently so. They can be found in period products, things like pads and tampons. This raises significant health risks because these chemicals persist in the environment and in our bodies, and they have potential impacts on users' health.
The presence of PFAS in period products is indeed a very serious public health concern, precisely because of the nature of these chemicals. PFAS are known for their exceptional persistence. They just don't break down easily, hence the forever chemicals moniker. They accumulate in the environment and in the human body. And they've been linked through various studies to a range of potential health impacts, including hormonal disruptions, immune system effects, developmental issues, and even certain types of cancer.
That's alarming for products used so intimately.
Extremely alarming. This discovery in products that come into intimate and prolonged contact with highly absorbent parts of the body emphasizes the critical need for increased regulation, much greater transparency in manufacturing processes, and thorough testing of consumer goods for these substances. It highlights just how pervasive these chemicals have become in our consumer supply chains, often in places we wouldn't expect. And it underscores the ongoing challenge of protecting public health from these unseen environmental contaminants. More research and regulatory action seem urgently needed here.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Okay, to wrap things up today, let's look at some unexpected insights and broader cultural conversations that caught our eye. Starting with an amazing individual achievement in sports. Oakland Athletics rookie Nick Kurtz. He made Major League Baseball, or MLB, history recently.
Yeah, what did he do?
He became the first rookie ever to hit 4 home runs in a single game.
4 homers as a rookie. Wow.
Yeah, a truly remarkable feat that puts him squarely in the record books. Just incredible power display.
That's an incredible individual performance in baseball. A truly standout moment for a rookie to achieve something no one else ever has. It's always exciting to see new talent make such a dramatic and historic impact like that. Reminds you of the sheer athletic potential out there.
Absolutely. But beyond individual feats like that, a recent BBC article highlighted something broader: the increasing pressure on elite female athletes. It advocated for more open conversations about the impact of things like periods, breasts, and specific types of injuries in women's sports. Things that have historically been kind of swept under the rug or just ignored, right?
Yes, absolutely. That discussion is crucial and, frankly, long overdue for achieving real equality and better welfare in sports. It highlights the pressing need for better support and understanding for female athletes, moving beyond generic, often male-centric training models to address the specific physiological realities and challenges women face throughout their careers. Open conversations about menstruation and its impact on performance, the need for appropriate breast support during high-impact activity, recognizing different injury patterns or risks unique to female bodies. These are vital. This kind of transparency in research can lead to more tailored training regimens, better medical care, improved equipment design like sports bras, and ultimately enhanced performance and, just as importantly, better long-term health and well-being for women in sports.
It seems so obvious, but it hasn't always been the focus.
No, it hasn't. It's a vital conversation for fostering a truly inclusive and genuinely high-performance athletic environment for everyone.
Definitely. And finally, a surprising historical note that just Well, it made me smile when I read it. John T. Scurlock, the inventor of the bouncy castle. You know, those inflatable things kids love.
Chuckles,
What?
yes, bouncy castles. Staple of birthday parties.
Well, it turns out he is also credited with saving lives by creating inflatable cushions for safe landings from great heights, like the kind firefighters might use.
No way. The bouncy castle guy invented those, too.
Apparently so. He was inspired by witnessing a tragic fire to apply his bouncy technology for public safety. I mean, talk about an unexpected legacy. From bouncy fun to literal life-saving innovation. Let's add a lighthearted, genuine laugh.
Chuckles warmly. That's a wonderful and truly inspiring anecdote, isn't it? It beautifully illustrates how science, ingenuity, and innovation, even when they come from seemingly unexpected and playful origins like a bouncy castle, can consistently provide groundbreaking solutions to very serious, real-world problems. Scurlock's story showcases a remarkable ability to pivot a fundamental concept, inflatables, from pure entertainment to critical safety equipment.
Amazing foresight.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this broader point, that invention often happens in surprising ways, combined with our earlier discussion about sports and women's health. It just reminds us that our understanding of both physical well-being and societal well-being is constantly evolving. It requires us to stay open to new ideas, new connections, wherever they may come from, even from a bouncy castle. Outro.
Well, that was certainly a deep dive into a truly packed few days of global events, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely packed. So much going on.
We've covered everything from the accelerating digital revolution and those complex geopolitical chess games to the surprising economics of matcha tea and the silent but growing struggles of loneliness. It just goes to show you how interconnected everything truly is, doesn't it? How seemingly disparate events really do weave into this larger global narrative, affecting everything from high-level international diplomacy right down to the price of your morning beverage.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're absolutely right. The threads of technology, diplomacy, the global economy, human well-being, they are more interwoven than ever before, tighter and more complex. This complex interplay requires us, I think, to constantly question, to connect the dots between different stories, and to reevaluate our understanding of the world, because it's never static. And staying curious, staying informed, and being open to multiple perspectives, that's probably our best defense against feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information coming at us every day.
Well said. And as artificial intelligence continues its astonishing evolution, pushing the boundaries of what's possible almost daily, and as global powers navigate these ever more complex conflicts and relationships, maybe consider this provocative thought: what new forms of diplomacy might emerge in the future, not just between nations, but potentially between humanity and its rapidly advancing, increasingly intelligent creations. How will our very understanding of peace, of conflict, of cooperation, how will that be redefined in the coming age of superintelligence, where our tools themselves might become partners or maybe even actors on the global stage? Something to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep asking questions, keep connecting those dots, and definitely keep that curiosity alive. Until next time.